everyone. We're going to get started. For those of you who don't know, my name is Gina Struble. I'm one of the nursing professors here. I'm also an ER nurse and one of the Title IX advisors here on campus. And I just wanted to continue our day of learning with another incredible workshop by St. Mary's alumna and our former BABO director, Connie Adams. Connie Adams is a compassionate advocate and dynamic educator. Connie is a national expert on international violence with 20 plus years dedicated to prevention and response. She is a seasoned trainer who has facilitated more than 100 multi-day trainings and more than 500 presentations. Throughout her career, Connie is most proud of contributing to foundational elements of the Department of Defense Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office's military's inaugural prevention practitioner certification, and serving as the inaugural director of our BABO office here at St. Mary's. So beyond her work, Connie enjoys thrifting, crafting, and Java. Very nice. So again, remember today to take care of yourself, take breaks, and grab snacks over there as needed. Please welcome Connie Adams.
Thank you so much, Gina. I am so excited to be here with all of you today. This is such an important symposium that is hosted every year. I see so many wonderful faces that are familiar and some new faces, which is also equally as wonderful. And I really do want to echo what Gina shared in terms of take care of yourself. This is a long day. It's also a Monday, regardless of whether you've been able to be here throughout the day or are joining us now in this moment. So take snacks. If you need to stand up, stretch, step out, whatever you need to take care of yourself, please do so. So there was a lovely introduction about me, but I am going to just take a moment and say that I am here before you, Connie Adams, as a person, one person to each one of you. And our conversation today is one on rest as a form of resistance and how we can find the balance within our lives and as we continue to move forward to a more equitable world. And with that in mind, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I stand here with a lot of privileges in that reality. And as we have this conversation, I am by no means an expert. I am here to simply create the space for all of us to consider what it means to have rest and to use that as a form of resistance. And so that's what I hope that we are able to do today. And I stand here with that privilege, especially as being white, knowing where the history of rest as resistance comes from, that influences this dialogue and this discussion. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and be mindful of that. Today, my hope is that you're going to walk away with some actual knowledge around some of the historical stems of this form of activism, of rest, explore a little bit about where this comes from, share some expertise from others that are much more well-known in this field. Again, I am by no means an expert. I am bringing knowledge forward around these theories. But more than anything, I hope that you're able to have a space to reflect, to draw on some type of commitment for yourself, and to consider what this means for you. Out of curiosity, in this space, how many of you have heard of or considered rest as a form of resistance in your activism work at some point? Are you familiar with this concept? Yes, I see half a dozen hands or so. So please, as we're having this dialogue, bring your expertise into this space as well. I want this to be as interactive as possible when it comes to our dialogue. I always like to have a few ground rules to establish where we are and where we're moving today. So we'll listen actively, speak from your own experiences rather than generalizing, challenge an idea if there's a concept you don't agree with rather than the person, participate fully, really value openness and honesty, be conscious of our body language and nonverbal responses, and create this safe and respectful space, which also means taking care of ourselves as we talked about earlier. Anything else to add to this list of ground rules? Feel okay with this moving forward? Oh, do we have one? Okay. I saw a hand. Be careful. I'm going to engage you. So I want to use this Mentimeter platform for a little bit of polling, a little bit of engagement with all of us. If you're not familiar, this is useful through your cell phone or a computer if you want to go to menti.com. And our code for today is going to be this code, 5109-7236. I'm hoping that this QR code works if that's a preference for you and makes it a little easier. If you do not have the technology, it's okay as well. You'll just take a moment to reflect for yourself rather than share with the entire space, which is just fine. People having success? Join in. Let's see. Go back to the beginning here. Are you all going to access this successfully? Beautiful. And so the first question that you see, awesome, yes, I'm seeing responses coming through. So these are just some ideas. I wanted to get a sense of what y'all think and feel about these ideas. So, you can't see it though, can you? Is the presenter, the system set up to not show everything, just show PowerPoint, do you know?
No, it should show everything.
Well, as Shay helps us over here to see what we can have, I'll just share a little bit of the information verbally for us. So the first statement, rest is a luxury. 4.2 is kind of our rating of our scale, which is a scale of 0 to 5. The second question, I believe I can find time to rest. Is it coming? Is it coming? Shay, are you working miracles for us? She's our IT queen. Okay, we're about middle ground with that statement. I know how to rest, a little bit less, I think 2.4 maybe. My eyesight is going at my young age here. Rest is resistance. This statement, closer, looks like probably almost 3. Okay, so present it here. That's what we want to do. Yes, okay, we're seeing this now for those of you that are more visual learners like myself. I am most myself when I am rested. 3.9 is where we're falling here, and rest is a form of activism, 3.8. So this just gives us a sense of where we are here in this moment. I want to take a look at our next question here. Drag this. I'm just curious about who's in this space. So who are you today? Are you a student, staff administrator, faculty member, or community member? Is it allowing you to? No. Okay. Oh, that's why. Beautiful. A little bit of extra white messes up that QR code, huh? Not surprising. Does anyone need candy? I can bring you candy. So you go to menti.com and type in the code 5109-7236. Is it working? Oh my gosh, okay, this is really bizarre. So, let me try one thing here. Present uniquely. Did that change anything for you if you refresh? If not, we're just going to kind of go back old school ways of conversation. Okay, how many of you are students? Raise your hands a little bit higher, and this actually helps me see. I told you my vision's fading. Okay, how many of you are staff administrators? Beautiful, beautiful faces. Faculty members. Awesome. Love it. Community members. Beautiful. Alums like myself. Okay, I just threw that one in there for fun. Okay, I'm gonna get out of this. We'll just kind of get back to our presentation here in a different way. So. This is a presentation on rest, and I do hope that you leave with a moment of being a little bit more refreshed, and so I want to just take a moment and have a collective deep breath together. So whatever that means to have your feet uncrossed if that feels right for you, hands just resting on your thighs, eyes closed or gazing at the ground, whatever that comfort level is for you. And we'll breathe in through our big belly breath. Breathe in through your nose will allow you kind of the deepest breath. If that doesn't feel comfortable, use your mouth. And we're gonna breathe in together. I'll count. So deep breath in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2. Breathe out. 3, 4. Rest. Let's do one more together. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. Let's do it one more time. I feel like we need it today. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Raise your eyes where you feel comfortable. If you don't want to look at me, you don't have to. It's okay. So let's talk a little bit about the fundamentals of rest. So question for you all. What comes to mind when you think of rest? Sleep. What else? Oh, yeah, in the back, please.
I kind of think of like this lounging around, not necessarily sleeping all the time.
Just lounging around, not necessarily sleeping, but just could be in whatever you're doing. Were you gonna say something similar or different?
Self-care.
Self-care. Yeah.
Less stress.
Less stress. How many of you feel like stress is in your lives? Oh, what a silly question, Connie. What a silly question. I see another hand in here. No commitments. Oh yeah. How many of you feel less stressed when you have like a canceled appointment or meeting or class or? Oh, yeah. That's real. So I don't have the perfect definition of rest, but what I really want to emphasize is this idea of slowing down. That could be sleeping, it could be napping, it could be enjoying some type of leisure activity, it could be just lounging and being, but it's really about being one with ourselves, in our inner being and the pace of our inner being versus the pace of what surrounds us. That's kind of the crux of it. I love this quote, and it gets at kind of the core of what we're talking about as a whole. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. I could just read this quote repeatedly and reflect on what that means in different ways. And so often, I don't think that's what we automatically consider because of what we're inundated by around us, the culture that surrounds us. How do you feel when you are rested? Or how do you imagine you may feel when you're rested? Maybe this is a deep recollection in your mind's eye of what rest felt like at one point in your life, maybe in the far distant past. How do you feel when you wake up from a nap? Yes, in the back.
I would say guilt.
Guilty, yes. How many of you can relate to a feeling of guilt when you rest? Or it keeps you from resting? Not everyone, that's okay, but the majority of us, I think it's safe to say, the hands that we just saw. Yeah. More productive. Some people relate to that, feelings of productivity with rest. Some people, okay, I see some heads nodding here. We know that there is an impact with the lack of rest. And that includes sleep and sleep deprivation. We know that it impacts stress. I know someone I think earlier said, less stress when you get rest, right? So the opposite is also true. Stress increases, increased depression, anxiety, chronic illness is at higher risk, including the leading causes of death across the country. So heart disease, stroke, diabetes, all of these can be connected to a lack of rest. It lowers, therefore, life expectancy overall. And we can talk about just kind of a smaller scale. I don't know about you, but if I don't get rest, I always joke I'm like a child. I need sleep. I need to eat. I need my quiet time. Or I get cranky. You don't really want to deal with me if I have these moments to the farthest degree. It impacts memory retention. A number of you are students. That impacts ability to be a student, right? To perform in what's expected as a student. Other impacts because of the lack of rest. This is far from a complete list. Anything else you can think of? For yourself or just as a general statement? Less patience, yes. Yes, irritability, and that is it related to you in terms of not wanting to maybe interact with your other people in relationships and kind of withdraw maybe in some ways? Yeah, I can relate to that too. So according to the CDC, 1 in 3 adults in the US report not getting enough rest or sleep every day, and nearly 40% of adults report falling asleep during the day without meaning to at least once a month. These are just some statistics, high level. I'm sure our nursing folks or medical folks in the room could pull a lot more knowledge and information around the impact in these ways. But rest is something that most individuals do not get enough of. And I think probably a lot of us, based upon the tendency of this room, we're kind of feeling that way, maybe a little bit. But rest is a basic human right. I am pulling a lot of information from an author, an activist by the name of Tricia Hersey, who are familiar with this book. So a lot of, again, these concepts are not my own, which is called Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto. If anyone wants to take a look, you're welcome to take a look. And Hersey founded what she has named the NAP Ministry, and is really trying to encourage individuals to rest. But I would also say a lot of this stems from far beyond Hersey's work and stems back to the abolitionist movement and beyond. And I want to talk a little bit about that in a moment. But we have a lot of messaging around us that says we shouldn't rest, which is, I think, why when I said what comes to mind when you think of rest, and one of the first things was guilt or shame. I shouldn't take the time to do this. I should be doing X, Y, Z. How many of you have ever thought, maybe you're like, okay, I really want to take a nap, or I need to go to sleep, or I need a mental break from this, but I really have to finish. Anyone relate to that? Yeah, I see heads nodding. So, why do we not rest? What encourages us not to rest? And how does the world respond when we rest? Anyone have thoughts on these general questions?
That you're shirking your responsibilities, or you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, you're shirking your responsibilities and not doing what you're supposed to do.
Like being busy is some sort of badge of honor.
Yes, being busy is some sort of badge of honor. All of these are interconnected. That there's a value that is placed on our worth for what we do, how we contribute, what we achieve. I see heads nodding again. But the truth of the matter is that we are enough by merely being ourselves. I am enough. You are enough. I want to say this together. I am enough. Can you say this with me? I'm going to count it. 1, 2, 3. I am enough. Okay, that was weak. Y'all, come on. I'm going to take a drink of water, give you a moment to recenter your. If you need a drink of water, here, shake it off. We're going to say it again. Ready? Oh, I see some drinks. Okay. Oh, solidarity. Hydrate. It's a form of rest. 1, 2, 3. I am enough. That was better. I think we can do a little better than that. We're going to do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. I am enough. Okay, that was much better. If you leave with one piece of information today, I hope it's this. I don't have a lot of necessarily essential truths that I'm going to share with you, but this is one of them. And rest has really deep roots, and really deep roots as resistance. When we think about where rest comes from, or where productivity, the push for productivity comes from, I'm going to call our attention back to the essentially creation of capitalism, which has this idea that our bodies are machines and that we need to do as much as possible all the time. That who we are and a value that we bring to this world is based upon what we produce and how much we produce and the depth of what that is, what we achieve. But that is actually not true. If we go back to that previous slide, that we are enough. Our value isn't connected to what we produce, even though we're told and inundated with this idea, both directly and more subversively. And capitalism was created on plantations. So we can't talk about capitalism, we can't talk about rest if we don't talk about slavery and white supremacy, which has this idea that human bodies for centuries are used as a tool for production, particularly black bodies used as a form of production. And some of what we see now with this idea, in whatever environment we're in, that pushes us to do, to constantly be on, to not get all the sleep that we need because we just have to do the next thing, that we need to turn our hobbies into profit, that leisure isn't what we really need. We'll rest when we're dead. All of that goes backward to these core systems that are what our society is rooted around. And it's worth talking about today at the Sexual Violence Symposium because we know that all systems of oppression are interlinked and interconnected. So if we're going to be talking about ending sexual violence, we have to talk about how are we ending other forms of oppression. And we have to look at what the roots of those oppression are, and what are the ways that we as individuals even can counter that. So, just for example, of some of the ways that these roots of activism that we're exploring today stem back is slaves on plantations, for example, slowing down their productivity as a form to resist that which was containing them and forcing them to be. It was an act of resistance to do that. And slavery was forcing individuals to work as much as possible. Can human beings work 20 hours? How much can human beings do with as little bit of sleep as possible? How can we mimic human beings to machines? Because the idea was that humans, black humans, were not of the same value, or not. And therefore, worth is based on productivity. And so if we're thinking about rest as resistance, we have to think about it as it's not just about sleep or naps. It's about how do we disrupt a system that tells us that what we do is what matters, what we produce is what matters. And there are two drastic options when it comes to capitalism. It's a binary system. And so just like any other form of system that we can disrupt, we have to look at what are the alternative means to step around us. I also want to draw kind of attention to think about how we may have internalized capitalism and not even realized it. Because just like patriarchy or any other system that we are surrounded by, there are ways that we internalize it naturally. What are some ways that you can think of that we may have, as individuals, internalized capitalism? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? We even kind of touched on some of them already in this space, which is interesting. Feeling guilty when we rest, that we shouldn't rest, that in and of itself is this same idea of how we're internalizing capitalism and white supremacy. That our self-worth is based upon what we produce, on the grades that we achieve, on what we're able to contribute in our careers. Yeah, in the back.
Yeah, kind of going off that, sometimes before I can chill or do nothing, I feel like I have to
Yes, before you can chill and do nothing, you feel like you have to
earn it.
earn it. Anyone else relate to that? I have definitely had this mindset in my life of I just need to do, once I do X, Y, or Z, then I'll let myself. Then I'll have earned rest. But what if we just deserve rest because we are? And it's a core nature of what it means to be human. And we are enough, and therefore we can just rest. And I know that rest is a privilege, by all means. I like this quote as well by Arthur Riley. Would you read it for us, do you mind?
Yeah. Rest will never feel urgent to those who don't understand the violence of exhaustion. In a world that uses the body as currency, rest is a sacred defiance, a reminder that we will not be owned.
Thank you. So being able to rest is social justice. So I want to think about how are we reframing rest. And so I mentioned this book, Rest is Resistance, earlier by Trisha Hersey, who has funded the NAP ministry and has these 4 tenets that are all around what it means to use rest as a form of resistance. Rest is a form of resistance because it disrupts and pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy. Our bodies are a site of liberation. Bless you. In and of themselves, our bodies are a site just by being. Naps provide a portal to imagine, invent, and heal. But our dream space has been stolen, and we want it back. We will reclaim it via rest. Go too fast. I'll leave it up here for a minute. Yeah, take a picture. These are not my tenants, again. These are Trisha Hersey's. But I think they're really valuable tenants, which is why I bother bringing them into this space for reflection. She's just one of the individuals that we're standing on her shoulders in this. We can, in fact, see our bodies as miracles, that our bodies are our own, and we can use rest to daydream, to visualize a future beyond the limitations that we live in, a world that is different than we currently understand and see. That this, in fact, is very possible. What would it look like for you to have the rest that you need? What would your life look like for that to be the case? I'm not going to ask you to share that out loud. I just want you to think about that for a moment. Reflect on what that reality would be for you to be rested, to be your fullest self. Hersey would argue that just taking a few minutes to think about a question that is like that is giving ourselves rest, is bringing us back to a source of rest as we're imagining something different than what exists as it stands. What we cannot imagine cannot come into being. We have to take the time to rest in order to envision what is the reality that we want for ourselves and for this world. And if we can't see that, whatever glimmer that you can see is what we want to be able to think about. And that's the first step towards being able to shift. But we have to rest in order to have the space to even be able to imagine. There are a lot of different forms of rest, and you can look at different sources and different sites that identify it and put it in different categories. And so I've just chosen some. Oh, this citation is wrong. My apologies. But I've chosen some to be able to share with you today and for us to think about. So sensory rest, spiritual rest, creative rest, playful rest, physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, and social rest. Let's talk about a couple of these and just kind of give some examples of what these types of rest could look like in our lives. We've talked about sleep as a form of rest, and I would argue that that's a form of physical rest, or napping in the same category. The lounging, I think, could be physical rest, but it could be another type of rest depending. And I also would argue that these are not just straight categories, like there's overlapping between them, so we can give an example of rest that is likely going to fall into more than one. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes categories help us to kind of think creatively around what rest can look like and allow us to take that next step forward. So let's choose one of these. What do we want to talk about first? Anyone like one of these? Yeah.
The social rest?
Social rest. Yeah, we already kind of brought up a concept around this. So social rest. And I think social rest can look different depending on who we are and what energizes us. and what our needs are. Can I ask what comes to your mind when you think of social rest?
Connie, what comes to my mind immediately, and that's why I think you're going to be even more popular, because you should take this on the road nationally. I think that it's hard for me to watch the news now. It was difficult before, but now there's that feeling like I have to do something and I cannot rest.
Yes.
More than I felt for, I could say, for years.
So this feeling of watching, if I can summarize this correctly, that watching the news feels very overwhelming and that it forces you to really feel like I need to do something. And that is a pressure that has been felt more recently than in a long time, in years, and certainly intersects with this idea of if we're doing a lot of times, we may be engaging with others and doing movement.
Very well reframed. It's perfect.
So what are some examples of social rest that you can think of? Just throw some out there.
Declining invitation.
Declining invitations.
No.
Say, well, you could if you want to decline all of them. I mean, socialization is good, but you can, maybe you're just very popular and you just have more invitations than I do, I don't know. So saying no. Putting your phone on do not disturb. Yeah. I like that. Sometimes it just means like being by yourself. Doesn't matter what I do, but I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I love talking to people, but I need to, like, I recharge by myself, and so I just need that space.
Depending on like what friend group I'm with or one with, I kind of let them know like, hey, my social battery died. I gotta go.
Yes, and so sometimes it's even, you can, depending on who you're with and what that relationship is and how they know you and understand, you can say, my social battery is bumped, full, I need to peace out. Yeah. So sometimes it can mean that you're able to articulate what you're doing, and sometimes if it means you're not at that stage or with those people to do that, that's okay too. But it might mean saying no altogether or saying, okay, yes, but in this capacity, this is what I'll do. Yeah. Anything else you can think of? Yeah. Not responding to emails when you're on vacation. Who would have thought of that idea? Mm-mm. Yes. Drawing those boundaries again, I think, is a big part of what rest can mean in a lot of different ways. And that's a really great example. It can also mean connecting with the people that we're closest with, that we have the strongest relationships with. Sometimes those one-on-one or small group interactions versus other interactions can be socially helpful for us and restorative in ways. Let's talk about another type of rest. Let's choose another one. This was a good one to get us started. Sensory rest. Yeah. Examples of sensory rest. Who has them? What do you think that might be?
Like meditating.
Could be meditating. Could be a silent walk. Do I see a hand? Just made that up. I'm seeing things, it's okay. It's really anything that, reduces the input from one of our senses. So it could mean something that is around silence. It could mean something like shutting down our phone, like separating from technology. It could mean, if we're tactile, maybe it's putting on cozy socks or a soft blanket. Can I just tell you, I had my niece who's 5 a couple of weeks ago during her spring break, and I have this really soft blanket, and I like really soft blanket in my bed. And she desperately wanted the blanket because it's so soft. She needed that sensory rest for herself, right? Any other thoughts? And ways that you find sensory rest if you think about it this way, or you know of others who do? Oh my gosh, I'm looking over here and I'm so sorry. Tell us you're brilliant.
calming music.
Calming music. Thank you for saying that, because it could mean silence, right? Or it could be tuning into certain sounds. So it could be calming music, it could be listening to birds outside the window. This is a great time of year to do this. It could mean whatever we can kind of, maybe it's closing our eyes so that we can hear differently, like we're in tune in that way. Beautiful. So you're getting the idea of these different types of rest. Another one you want to talk about, or you feel good about these? I think we're feeling good. We're feeling good, we're feeling confident. Smart, brilliant people. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to rest. How many of you have thought, I already don't have enough time because of all of the intense demands of your life? How can I rest? Yeah, I get that. And that's one reason that I want to emphasize, there's not one way to rest. We just looked at different categories of rest, what rest can be. Rest comes with a privilege. As someone who is middle class, I have a privilege to rest in a different way than individuals who may be working multiple jobs to make ends meet. There's not one type of rest. And that's a part of what Hersey is calling us to rethink as well, is rest may mean taking 5 minutes a day to just sit and close your eyes and connect with yourself. Maybe it means that you are thinking about the one way that you can, when you're driving to work or you're walking to class, that you're gonna listen to some music and try to tune into what that means. It's thinking about how can you rest? How can you rest? And I'm not here to say it has to be a nap in this way, at this amount of time. Like, again, this is not me being the expert of what your truth needs to be, but it's how can you reflect on what this means for you? It could mean choosing a mantra. These are just some examples, but certainly not all encompassing. The legacy of exhaustion stops with me. The time to rest is now. I rest for my ancestors. Rest is our protest. Rest is not a luxury. I am not defined by what I do, produce, achieve. I am enough. And maybe it means just you're going to choose a mantra and you're going to use that to repeat to yourself again and again whenever you can bring it to mind. Maybe you choose a theme for a month that you try to find ways to embrace. A concept that you think might be helpful for your own rest practices, like playfulness or nourishment or routine. Goodness, I gravitate towards that one with my personality. I like routine. But whatever it may be for you, these are not like the only kind of ideas of what rest is and how you can integrate more rest into your life. Just a couple of ideas and thoughts around that. Does anyone have other ideas that they want to share just of what they've done or heard about of people integrating rest? That's okay if you don't.
So as a working social worker, I'm mindful about what I will watch. I love TV movies, but I'm maybe not gonna watch the medical drama because that might not feel like rest.
Yes. What a beautiful example. So as a working social worker, but I think this could be for any of us if there's a category of concept that feels like it does not give us the rest that we need. So when we're thinking about what we're engaging in entertainment-wise, like on TV or movies, are there categories of topics that we don't watch, like medical dramas or whatnot? Or we know we have what X capacity for that, or before we need to say, gotta say no to that thing. I want each of us to think for a moment about one commitment, one intention for rest for yourself in your life. Here, let me go back to those categories of rest, because if you're like me again, just kind of thinking through some things can be helpful. You would start with the category. This is not meant to be a life-altering type of commitment that you're making, and it's only something that feels feasible for you. And so your life is your life, your challenges are your challenges. And I'm going to ask that you write it down. So if you need paper, I'm going to bring it to you. One commitment that you can make for rest. I want you to write it down. How many pens? Paper? Pens, paper, anyone? The reason I asked you to write it down is there's actually scientific research that shows us that when we write something down, we are more likely to follow through and actually do it, which is part of the goal here. So if you need paper, let me know, I will come to you. Anyone else? This can mean you're gonna commit to some casual bike rides, gonna work a puzzle. Some time for meditation or prayer, whether that's a specific ritual or beyond that. Maybe you're going to say no to your next social commitment. Unless I invite you, then say yes. Just kidding. Everyone have one? Okay. I want you to turn to one another in small groups. Let's see here. Would you two be a pair? And you can maybe turn around here. Would you mind? And let's see here. Would you turn around and join them? Be a little trio. Maybe like a small group, just 2 or 3 near you. A couple here. And share what your commitment is with your partner or partners. If you're coming in right now, it's okay if you don't know what's going on. If you haven't swapped, make sure everyone has an opportunity to share. Okay, let's come back together, my dear friends. We have one volunteer. Let's listen up here.
So I said I would like to do a Lego set, because when I was younger, like my parents couldn't afford to get Legos, and I always had that like craving and like, oh, I always wanted to do Legos, but was never able to. So I think it's that for myself.
I love that. Thank you. Over here. I'm coming. Yes, let's hear it.
I just wanted to tell you that there are cheap, like, knockoff Legos on Amazon that are just as good.
We love whatever bargain we can get. Any other examples y'all want to share? And I'd love to. Maybe one more.
The one that I've been trying to do more is putting 15 minutes before and after meetings in my calendars, so that you don't get 14 things back to back to back. It makes it look like you're busy before the actual meeting, but you're not.
But you are busy, just in a different way. In a different way. Yes, I love that. Brilliant. So, in sum, we're about at time here. So, a few things I want you to walk away with. Rest is not something you earn. It is not a luxury. Rest looks different for different people. Rest is how we connect with the core of ourselves and our humanity. It's when we are most us. And most importantly, that you are enough. We are pretty close to time, if not at time. Am I right? Am I at time? Am I after time? Oh yeah, we are definitely at time. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time today, and I encourage you to explore this concept more fully for yourselves and what it means. Thank you.